Despite the popularity of He-Man, he's never had a box office success. But is 2026 the year that happens? Welcome back, everyone. We are here today to talk about He-Man's new movie, Masters of the Universe from 2026. It's out, I've watched it, and I would love to tell you my thoughts on this film. If you ever want my spoiler-free review, by the way, that is available for members on the channel, so you can check that out over there if you are a member. But for those of you that are not, we are going to be discussing this with spoilers intact. So just a heads up before we jump into this review. And before we do that, I would like to know from you, what childhood property or IP would you love to see turned into a movie? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's start off by talking about the story of the movie. So, Masters of the Universe, what is it about? Adam and his journey trying to get back home to his family in Eternia. When Adam was young, he ended up being separated from Eternia, separated from his people. He was sent away to protect the power of Eternia. He is given the Sword of Power, but unfortunately, traveling through to Earth during that journey, he gets separated from the sword, so he spends his entire life growing up on Earth looking for this sword, to the point that people feel that it's a little weird how obsessed he is with swords. And Adam being Adam, he's honest about who he is, which kind of freaks people out because they think he's delusional, talking about Eternia and Fisto and all these weird things from his past that sound made up, like made up fantasy stuff. But he is telling the truth, and when he does end up finally finding the sword again, Teela is able to come and rescue him, and they go back to Eternia. And when they're there, He-Man is forced to confront his own legacy. He becomes He-Man. He does have the power. He is able to fight back against Skeletor's might, and giving everyone, finally, a happy ending where they can all be together. Except for his dad, because his dad is dead. So that's basically what we get with this. There is a little bit of post-credit stuff as well. Some allusions to Orko and She-Ra there, which is pretty neat. But that's essentially the movie in a nutshell. Now, I do think this story works really well, and I think the script also has some really strong moments, and it reminds me a lot of another movie that I've seen and another story that I know of, and that is the story of Thor. Thor, who, instead of being sent away to be rescued, he was cast out of his kingdom and has to prove himself. Adam, on the other side of things, has always been worthy, but he simply needs to understand that he is worthy. He has to see that within himself. So those have some cool parallels, and I think it makes sense. I mean, they're both fantasy, they're both kind of barbarian-esque characters, these big muscly guys that have a lot of strength. So there are parallels between some He-Man stuff that I have already seen and loved and some Thor stuff, and I think this as a first He-Man story works really well. It's a good way to introduce you to the character and to show you these different sides of who he is. And with Adam, we actually have an amazing cast here. I feel like Nicholas Galitzine, I was a little nervous about him initially playing He-Man. I just wasn't super familiar with him, but he did such a good job as Adam. And something that I feel he really nailed is what makes Adam such a great leader, such a strong character, and just making him really sweet and honest and kind. And that's all in the script as well, supporting those choices, but it's all in how Nicholas delivers these lines. He just feels like a good guy. And I think that's important because whether we're talking about He-Man or whether we're talking about Adam, those are both really the same characters. And sure, Adam starts out when he's younger being this kind of small kid, but he grows up and he becomes a huge man. And Nicholas really has that presence on screen, and we even get a magical girl style transformation like we would have had in the original He-Man series, where Adam becomes He-Man and he transforms. And I mean, he is jacked. The guy put in work at the gym for this role. And it's not just about the muscles, which I think is also a strength to the way we're deciding to portray He-Man here, because there is so much more to him than just his muscles, but that is part of who he is as well. So it understands that softer side and the tougher side of who this character is. And Nicholas does such a great job in this, which is important because Adam is one of those characters that if you can't get that right, this movie does not work. But that's not all we have. On the side of light, we have Adam, but on the side of dark, we have Skeletor. And I feel like Skeletor is another character that it's really important to nail, because he's so important to even who Adam is and acting as a foil for him. And so how did we do with that? Because a lot of people were obviously nervous with Jared Leto playing him. I personally feel like Skeletor was amazing in this. Jared Leto did a great job playing Skeletor. I am happy to say that he may have been my favorite part of the movie. He was an absolute scene stealer. And while I did hear on Reddit someone mention that Jared Leto in this movie, it's just Jared Leto doing a Tim Curry impersonation, and now I can't really unsee that. I still feel like that works really well. I'm actually surprised that Tim Curry hasn't ever played Skeletor. That would be a really good voice cast for the role.
That's it. I finished.
Of course, my lord.
When I raise my fist like that, I'm done!
Yes.
But I think that Jared Leto did a great job. He captures the whimsy, the terror of Skeletor, how silly he is, but there's also such a commitment to that character. And there's a lot of depth to the voice work that he's doing in this. But of course, I believe he also did the performance physically as well, and he is completely unrecognizable here. So if Jared Leto bothers you in some way, which I totally understand, I have read some things about him as a person that I also feel are very but just him as an actor in this is really what I'm focused on. So, you know, if you can't stand Jared Leto, and if you are boycotting this movie, or, you know, you just don't watch anything with Jared Leto in it, I totally understand that, and I understand where you're coming from, trust me. I also will say that when I'm talking about him as an actor, I am just really talking about him as an actor, and he does a great job in this. So I don't know. But he's not the only one in this movie. I mean, we do have a really good cast overall. Idris Elba's in here. He does a great job in this as our man-at-arms, as Duncan. And I love him in everything. The script is not always as strong as it could be for some of them. And I will say that at one point, Adam's mom, they decided to add in a CGI tear when she's reunited with him, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why we did that to that actress, but just let her emote how she's going to. Or if you want her to cry, you know, you can put drops in people's eyes to make them do that. I don't know, man. But overall, the acting I thought was pretty good, other than that CG tear that they decided to add in, which admittedly is not really the actress's fault. That's more of a someone in post decided that was necessary, I guess. While the characters are great, the characters are not the most important part, maybe even of the movie. I think setting is very important to this film. And I know a lot of us were worried when we saw that we were going to be on Earth. You know, how long are we going to be on Earth for? Is it going to be the whole movie? So I have something great to report, and that is, it's not the whole movie. It's only really the first part of the movie that Adam's on Earth. And the other thing that I'll say is, Earth versus Eternia, I think I even kind of preferred the Earth stuff, surprisingly. It just felt a lot more grounded, and there was more urgency to it. There was more momentum to that part of the movie, versus when we get to Eternia, I think they did a great job with capturing the beauty and the wonder of Eternia. It feels almost like it's got this dream-like quality. Once again, I'm going to make another parallel here to the Thor film, where we had Asgard, and while it looks kind of surreal and fake, Asgard, that is also what we did with Eternia. And I think both of those work because we are in this world of fantasy, and so you want it to feel surreal, and they did a great job of capturing that. Plus, there's also a lot of realistic sets. But what I will say is, that is also one of the most intensive periods of this movie for the blue screen usage, the CGI, and while there is still a lot of practical, some of the CG stuff looks amazing, and then some of it looks a little rough. Some of the green screen stuff looks flawless, and then some of it looks a little rough. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, because I want to talk about the budget for this movie. That's gonna be a big thing, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, Eternia was a little bit of a mixed bag for me. And I also just feel like that's the portion of the movie where it drags a little bit and we lose a little bit of that momentum because Adam doesn't really know what he's doing and he's kind of trying to find his way and find his path and figure out who he is. And it just feels like that part of the film stutters a little bit. But overall, I think they still did a pretty good job with Eternia, and I was pretty happy with it. So a lot of what I'm talking about here even is more me nitpicking on things. And the themes of the film, I thought they absolutely nailed. We're talking a lot about masculinity in this movie, about what it means to be a man, the softer sides of Adam, like I said, the more tough, burly sides of him as a character. This idea of, you know, when he's He-Man, is he even still Adam? Is he He-Man? And I loved how it approached all of that. I thought it did a great job with making that the center stage theme of this production. And it's interesting because, you know, we had Barbie a few years ago and Barbie was very much about like the feminine, and now we have He-Man and it's very much about the masculine, which I think makes a lot of sense. And this film had some great things to say on toxic masculinity. It talks about this idea of how as men, a lot of men feel they have to be one way when really to be a man is like anything else. You have a range of emotions, you have a range of feelings, and it's okay to talk about those feelings. And Adam isn't just a strong person because of his muscles. He's a strong person because he is kind and he is considerate and he has this ability to really listen and hear anyone out and resolve conflicts in ways that are skilled. Like, he works in human resources on Earth for a reason, because he's a great listener and he's good at trying to find that middle place between himself and other people and find out what works best for everybody. He's a strong leader. That's what makes Adam such a great character. It's his ability to lead, and that doesn't necessarily just come from his muscles. I will say that I felt they pulled back a little bit on resolving the conflict between Adam and his dad. They have this moment where they are discussing, you know, when Adam was young and he felt this pressure from his dad to be the strongest. And he says, you know, look at me now. Now I'm He-Man. I finally become the person you wanted me to be. And his dad's like, wait, what? No, I just wanted you to be strong because I wanted to protect you, because I wanted you to be safe. But I never thought there was anything wrong with you, which is still very sweet. And I feel like Nicholas's performance too in that conversation with his dad was very powerful, but I wish they had just kind of let the king take a little bit more of a fall for that. Like, let him be more responsible and let him say, you know, I was wrong to have pressured you that way, as opposed to saying that wasn't my intention. Because I felt that weakened a little bit of Nicholas's performance, because he's really giving us a lot in that moment. But, you know, it still was good. I still felt moved. I just felt they could have gone a little bit further. And ultimately, that's my main issue with this movie, is that it feels like we went 80% of the way or 75% of the way, and then we just pulled our punch a little bit. It's a movie that does Masters of the Universe, makes all of these amazing references to the show, where if you're a fan, I think there's a lot here for you to love, but it also can't help but every 5 minutes make fun of He-Man. And at the beginning, it's kind of funny when He-Man's explaining, you know, this is my whole life story and how I grew up, and I was on Eternia and I was sent to Earth, and then we pull back and we see he's on a date telling this story, and this woman who's just from Earth is like, this guy's crazy. That was funny. Leave it there. You've already made the joke. We get it. He-Man can be a little ridiculous. Sure, I understand. But they couldn't stop themselves from doing it constantly. I feel like there was a war on this writing team between the people that genuinely love and care about He-Man and the other people that just don't really like it or can't take it seriously, so they feel like they need to make a joke every 5 minutes. And that's why some of the jokes I felt really hit in this, and then some of them fall kind of flat. It's like they didn't really learn the lesson from making the Barbie movie and from what we did with that. The success of Barbie came from the fact that we did Barbie and we fully committed to that world, you know? There was no making fun of Barbie. It was mainly about actually talking about what Barbie represents and everything to do with that. And a lot of the humor comes from the commitment to those moments. And everyone in that movie was so committed. And in He-Man, I feel like all of the actors are committed, but sometimes the script is undermining everything they're trying to build and work on. And the story also has a little bit of issues with that as well, because that's obviously all part of the script. There's also an inconsistency with this film in terms of quality. Talked about it a little bit with Eternia and with the CG, and I think it's really obvious that their budget, I think, got a little mismanaged, because, you know, we have Cringer at the beginning of the movie, and then we have Cringer at the end of the movie. And that's all the Cringer you get in this. Probably because it was a lot of money to put into the visual effects to create Cringer and do all of that. And Cringer looks great in it. Same with Orko. No Orko until the post-credits. I was a little upset about that. But I feel like it extends even beyond just CG. There are times where I feel like the shots are so creative and so beautiful in the cinematography, and then sometimes the cinematography feels so bland and so boring. It's a lot of, you know, A shot, B shot, A shot, B shot for conversations. So it's weird how we can have even fight sequences that feel kind of boring at some points, and then other fight sequences which feel super hyped up, like the fight with Adam and Skeletor at the end, or the fight with Man-at-Arms and Trapjaw near the beginning of the film. Those are a couple of my favorite fights, and then everything else that's in between has moments, but overall it just doesn't feel as meaningful, as powerful as some of the other stuff in the movie. But I can't believe a movie like this that has an estimated production budget of 170 to 200 million has so many problems with how inconsistent it looks. And it also boils down to costumes too. I mean, I will say the makeup throughout this movie is amazing, but some of the costumes, like you have He-Man's costume, which looks absolutely flawless. Teela's costume also looks good, but then at the end of the movie, we have Teela in a new costume, in her more traditional costume, or closer to, and that one looks terrible. Like, it looks like it's all one piece that was printed. Like, they printed all the details on it. There's no texture to it. So I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what happened with the budget and how it got managed, but that's a problem that I have with the movie. And honestly, I feel like even if you took out all of the stuff where you made fun of He-Man, this would still appeal, because the story is good. The story is fine. Just let it do its thing. But the other thing is, you know, if they had just waited a few months, we could have been having Masters of the Odyssey or Odyssey Man. You know, we don't have another Nolan production, so we're missing out on that marketing. The projections for this movie for opening weekend are sitting at around 60 million. So for me, I feel like, is this going to be the box office success? I don't think it's going to be quite what studios were hoping for, but there is a potential for it to do well overseas, and maybe that'll boost it to where it needs to be. Because right now, domestic, I don't think we're going to get there, even with good word of mouth, which the audience score right now on Rotten Tomatoes at the time of recording is sitting at around 87%. So while the critic score is at around 67%, which I think is a little low, but I mostly agree with that. I would say, like, I'd give it a solid 3.5 or 3 out of 10. So maybe even like 70%, I think, would be fair for this movie. But the audience score is doing really well, so that's going to give us some good word of mouth. I think even with that, this film is going to struggle to just get to break even. Because if we need 200 million up to that, plus marketing costs to get back, that's a lot of money to make back. And usually in your first weekend, you want to be at around half of that. And this film is lacking. It is behind the mark, which is unfortunate too, because She-Ra being one of the people that we see in the post credits, I was really excited about that, and I was like, man, we could have a She-Ra movie. And then when I left, I thought, but we may not get any more. This might be it. So hopefully people go out to see it and people love it. And if you are one of those people that loved it, or if you didn't love it, let me know your thoughts on this movie down in the comments below. I'll see you down there. And until next time, friends, as always, stay nerdy. Bye! And if you've missed any of my recent movie reviews, make sure you check those out as well. You can check that out over here.